This is our 21st webinar in our talk series. For those who were not here earlier and have joined us only today, Ritambara is a wellness company that looks at wellness in a holistic way, not just the body, but the mind as well, and all through the practice of knowledge and wisdom that comes from our ancient Indian scriptures and heritage. Our topics will delve into self-discovery, personal transformation, health, harmony, and holistic well-being, as well as the arts, which help connect us with our higher selves. All our earlier talks, for those who are interested, are uploaded on YouTube under Ritambara Wellness. If you'd like to be a part of our community, the details of where you can connect with us are posted on the chat. So please go on to the chat. You can also put your email and your phone number and we'll add you to the group. So today we have for you Shri Krishnapani Kesiraju. He's our program director and he drives the spiritual direction in our company. And he's going to be talking on the subject, self-centered to centered self. A very intriguing subject, so we're all waiting eagerly to hear what he has to say on this subject. We have 45 minutes of talk, followed by 15 minutes of question and answer that will be moderated by Shri Krishnapani ji himself. But there are some protocols. We would request you all to be muted through the talk, and we will be muting you in case you don't, since all these sessions are recorded. But feel free to post your questions on the chat function, and Shri Krishnapani ji will go through them one by one. You can also ask your questions personally after we finish the questions on the chat function, if you'd prefer to do that. So thank you everyone for being here. And Krishnapani ji, thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Beena ji, and a very good evening to all the participants. Today, we're going to talk on the subject self-centered to centered self. This is a phrase which has been used in different contexts, and in some other session also I have made a mention that Professor Ravi Ravindra, a very well-known author, he is a physicist and also a philosopher. So he is fond of using such terms where he tries to put the things reverse again to give you a better meaning of some of the words. So we are going to talk about self-centered to centered self. This is the topic I would like to mention at the very beginning is something for those who are serious and are committed to the pursuit of the spiritual path, or those who are interested in having a deeper understanding of things. In that context, we will try to examine what exactly do we mean by the term self-centered. Now, to use the modern jargon, it can be said that the self comes with its own operating system. That means we are all born with a particular operating system in place. And then, not only that, we also come with our own pre-programmed software installed. This can be made out very easily because we find that even children born to the same parents, in the same environment, with the same background, same culture, same language, same environment, everything being same, still they are different. They're quite different. Now, how is it that you explain this difference? This means that there is something else that comes along with us when we are born. When the physical body, a physical birth takes place, the child comes with his own operating system and his own software installed. Some pre-programmed software is there, and we can actually make it out also. It's not something hypothetical or something being proposed as a theory. We can make out that each individual is unique. Initially, it may appear that the child is groping and trying to learn something and unable to make out things for a couple of years. But then slowly, we can make out both the things. How he is able to absorb the environment, absorb the background, and the things that are presented to him, and at the same time display his own uniqueness, his own individuality in so many respects. Even as a small child, we find that each individual is quite unique. And being embodied, that means being with a body. Obviously, everything is connected to that body. Initially, we connect everything to our body, and then progressively as we grow, we connect it to our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, and then there is a continuous interaction between the individual and the environment. Environment including everything which is not me. So there is this division of me and the not me. This division we can make out very easily in our own case also. What is it that we are extremely conscious about? We're extremely conscious about our own being, that I am there, that I have a body. And this body is the center of all activity. It's the center of all activity. Everything, all action flows through the body. Now, when we are trying to understand this self, the first thing we know is that I am there. Nobody from outside need to tell you that you are there, isn't it? Even a child knows that he is there or she is there. The child knows that, yes, I am there. The sense of being, which we call as the sense of being, or in other terms, we call it as self-awareness. And not only the awareness that I am there, it grows into what we call as I am something. I am something in the sense, I start identifying myself with several factors. With my own name. My parents have given me a name, so I identify myself with that name. So I am that. So I am something. Beyond that, you have so many other things which you slowly, progressively acquire. You now try to understand how you are related to the environment. That means you have a mother and a father, or a brother and a sister, or an aunt and an uncle. You have a language, you have a residence, you have so many things that are a part of the environment which you absorb and interact with. So therefore, this identity grows. This identity of what I call as myself progressively grows. And this is very important. This is very important for development. This is very, very pertinent for the process of growth. Otherwise, if you do not acquire this identity, it will be as though you are lost. You have nothing to say about yourself, or nothing to actually say that you are growing or developing. But the inherent fact in this is that I am the center of all my activities and all my relationships, all my interactions with the environment, I identify myself as the most important person and the center of all my activities. All my activities are around this center which I call as myself. Now, what exactly is this I? I is actually an acquisition. I is a product or a result of the environment with which I am connected. Without the environment, without the background, without the relationship, there cannot be an I. The I has to identify itself, relate itself, connect itself to things, and then create its own identity. Create one's own identity. And as I said, as a part of this operating system and pre-programmed software, I have this ability to think, this ability to act, the ability to respond, the ability to communicate. So progressively what is happening? All these factors are becoming important. All my abilities, my skills, my talents, my whole process of identification through this thoughts, feelings, emotions, actions, verbal and non-verbal communication, and so on and so forth. For which purpose? The body is endowed with certain senses. Actually, the body is not endowed with certain senses, but the body is endowed with instruments which act as the windows for the senses in the brain center. That means I have these eyes. These are instruments. If the nervous system is not there or the connection is not there between this instrument and the center in the brain, I'll not be able to see. Similarly, with all other senses, this connectivity is there. So there is an instrument, there is a sense, another instrument which we call as the brain, where it is the center which receives inputs from all the external instruments of the body. So this whole process has to be identified. We have to carefully go into it and try to identify what exactly is happening. Because most of us take it for granted that I am able to see, I am able to hear, I am able to think, I am able to smell, I am able to taste, I am able to feel sensations and all these things. We take it for granted because they are there right from the beginning. But you ask somebody who doesn't have a particular sense, he knows how deprived he is of it. So we take things for granted. Instead of taking things for granted, let us examine these things. Let us try to carefully investigate oneself. You don't need anybody else to do some basic analytical work of trying to see how these things are connected, how the inputs from the environment are received by the sense organs or instruments and conveyed to the brain center, and the brain center classifies them, and there is a what is called as a memory to it, and it stores these experiences and converts them into information, and then keeps it ready so that it progressively can use these things. We can't be making the same mistake again and again, then there won't be any learning process. So slowly we are acquiring what is called, what we are calling as the ego sense, that I am there and I am something, I am unique, I have certain abilities and skills and talents and functionalities which are unique to me. So all this is what I am calling as the self, as myself. Apart from this, Apart from in our one of our earlier discussions, we also mentioned that this process of experience, knowledge, and memory. The whole mind or whole what I call as myself or the I is a bundle of the experiences which we have undergone and what we have converted what kind of knowledge we have converted that experience into and what is it that we have stored. Now this bundle of experiences, knowledge and memory is what I am identifying as myself. This is me. So that becomes my center. Apart from this center, I do not know any other center. I do not know anything else because it's very, very clear to me that I cannot feel for you. I cannot experience what you are experiencing. I cannot do what you are doing or what you are capable of doing. So there is this uniqueness. There is this uniqueness of one's own identity, which is progressively created along with, as I said, the inputs which are already there, the operating system and the installed software that is there. So this, by nature, we are self-centered. By nature, we are self-centered. There's nothing wrong in it. There's nothing wrong in it. This is the process. This is the process. See, because as the Western psychology identifies thought, feelings, and volition as the mind. Now, but there is one more element that goes into it. In our process of this analysis, if we go slightly deeper, we feel that I am something beyond this. I am something beyond what I consider myself to be. Yes, I am all this. I am all this, and yeah, it's all true. To that extent, it's fine. But if somebody asks you or you yourself probe into your own being, do you think your thoughts, feelings, and emotions and your experiences, knowledge, and memory, is that all, or is there anything more? Intuitively, we feel or we have that sense of being something beyond this. The fact of the matter is we don't know what is that. The fact of the matter is we don't exactly know what that is, but intuitively we have a sense of being that, being something more than all this that is known about me. All this that is known about me, I think there is something beyond that. So that is one factor which we should recognize, and that becomes the next level of the self. That also is me. That intuitive sense of being more than my own mind, my own emotions, my own thoughts, because of the simple reason that my thoughts are changing, my emotions are changing, my feelings are changing, my actions are continuously changing. There's so many things are happening which are not constant, but the fact is that I am constant, I am there. I have been there since childhood, and I am continuing to be there even now. Into my teenage, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, I am there. And is this I different from what it was when I was 3 or 4 years old? The answer is both yes and no. It is no, because this I has tremendously grown. It has enlarged its scope. But the answer is also yes, because essentially I am the same person. My body has changed. I was a toddler. I was a young person. Then I became a middle-aged person and an old person now. So I see that change also. But can they say that, no, you are not the same fellow? The same fellow was, when he was young, he was totally different, and you are totally different. No. So essentially, we are the same. And in another sense, we are not the same because we have been expanding and enlarging our activities, our experiences, our knowledge. And we also notice another thing, that our experiences are not necessarily complete in themselves. There can be so many other experiences which one has not undergone. Each individual has undergone several experiences, and therefore I am not the same person. I cannot experience all the things in this world. Similarly, my knowledge is also very, very limited. And I keep losing my memory. I don't remember everything that has happened to me. So these things also I notice, that what I call as the I in me is also continuously expanding and diminishing and changing and modifying itself and doing all kinds of things. But still, as I said, essentially I say that I am the same person. I am what I am when I was born or when I started going. Till now, I am the same. That is what I am calling it as the I. And as I mentioned, the most important factor of this I is this sense of being unique. The sense of being unique. Not only the sense of being unique in one way, one also has this idea of being the most important person in this world, isn't it? Who is the most important person in this world? For anybody for that matter. Who can it be? It's I. Because if I am not there, the world is not there for me. There is a saying in Urdu, Jaan hai to jahan hai. If you are there, if you are alive, if you have a life of your own, then the world is there for you. So this idea of uniqueness and being the most important person is embedded in the system again. We go to the extent of saying that the whole solar system and the whole galaxy and the universe and everything revolves around me. Revolves around me. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a long passage. Yajnavalkya, the sage Yajnavalkya says to his wife, when she is questioning him about it, she says, in that conversation, Yajnavalkya says, your spouse is important because you are there. Because of the desire for yourself to continue, your wife is important to you. Similarly, he goes on saying so many things. Your son is important to you because you are there. The Atma. Atma has several layers of identification, including starting from the body onwards. The scriptures refer right from the body onwards to everything which I call as myself as the Atma. Is the wife dear to you? He says, no, the wife is dear to you because you are dear to yourself. The husband is dear to you because because you are dear to yourself. So goes on and on and on, and finally he comes to the idea and says, it is this Atma which you have to know. What is this self? You need to understand this because you are the most important being. So you have to understand the nature of this self. Atma va are drashtavyaha, shrotavyaha, mantavyaha, nididhyasitavyaha. This is a very famous mantra. It says you have to find out, see, listen, contemplate, meditate, and then come to know about what this self is. This is the self. This is the Atma or the I, which is the most important thing. So, do we truly know ourselves is a very important question. As I mentioned in some other context, this is the most important question which Ramana Maharshi used to pose. Naan yaar, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? That becomes the most important question in our inquiry. Otherwise, superficially, we keep seeing that I am all this in which I continue to live my entire life, which without going to the next level of the depth of understanding as to how is it that I can say that I am there. I am beyond my thoughts, beyond my feelings, beyond my emotions, beyond my mind. Do we really identify that? What is that beyond? Intuitively we sense it. As I said, there should be something. But I don't know. That is what Yajnavalkya really says, that you need to inquire and find out. Otherwise, from a superficial point of view, this self becomes most important, and all your activities are driven by your desires, your thinking processes, your actions, your enjoyments, what you want to acquire, what you want to gain, what you continuously have been doing. We have been doing all these years. We have been only inquiring into this superficially and not going beyond this. And in the process, I am only expanding what I am calling as the I. But still, there is so much of discontentment. There is so much of dissatisfaction. There is so much of some kind of lacking in me. That lacking of some fulfillment in me. It is that which has to be identified, because if you are making yourself as the center from an external point of view and connecting only with the environment, then it is always going to be very partial, very limited, very fragmented. It will be only bits and pieces. It will be only very, very limited. Because the moment you are tied to something, you are already describing your circumference. You are already delimiting the area of your functioning, the field of your functioning, and calling yourself as the I and limiting to that arena only, to that functional area only. Beyond that functional area, you are not there. This is the problem. So there is a necessity for shifting this center. There is this urgent necessity for shifting this center. So unless we understand the nature of this self with which we have been acting all through, this shifting the center would not be possible. Very interestingly, Adi Shankaracharya in the Viveka Chudamani, he makes a very beautiful statement. He says, Asti kaschit swayam nityam aham pratyaya lambanaha avasthatraya sakshi san panchakosha vilakshanaha. He says that there is something, there is some entity which is eternal by nature, nityam. And it is the basis of the experience of the ego sense. Aham pratyaya lambanaha. Aham pratyaya lambanaha means the basis of what I call myself as the I, which is the ego sense. And this is something which is the witness of all the three states of consciousness, that is the waking, dream, and deep sleep states. Avastha Traya Sakshi. There is the witnessing. We know that after having a deep sleep, we come back to the waking consciousness and intuitively know that we had a deep sleep, and during the sleep also we were there. The I was there in some form, in a dormant form, not in an active form at all. But yes, you recognize that state when you come back to the waking state. This is what is called as the Avastha Traya Sakshi. And this, what he calls this as something which is there, as Panchakosha Vilakshanaha. We have 5 sheets called as the Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya koshas. These are the koshas. I will not go into that subject at all. But he says, you are Vilakshanaha, totally different, distinct from these 5 koshas. You are totally distinct from these 5 koshas. Now, the beauty of this statement is, please understand the humility with which Adi Shankara is introducing this subject. He is introducing this subject not with any authority and say that, yes, because I am saying something is there. That beautiful word is asti kaschit. There is something. Swayam nityaha. That which is on its own, which is eternal, which is permanently there. Which is permanently there. You understand the point? So he is identifying it that way. Coming to our point again, it is important for us to dwell upon it and allow our intuition to function to expand this realization of what it is which is beyond the mind. Don't name it. We are not supposed to name it. We are not supposed to grasp it. We are not supposed to hold on to it. Because that holding is again an activity of the mind. Activity of the self-centered I. Is holding on to it. Because its nature is acquisitive. Its nature is that. So if you give prominence to that, one will become more and more insensitive to something which is there. Asti kaschit. So that, if we are able to allow that to expand on its own, without allowing the activity of this I becoming much more and more involved and interfering in the process. So it is basically a question of shifting the center from the superficial I, which has been acquired over a period of time, which itself realizes that it is not the whole thing. It does not represent the complete sense of one's own being. So it has to allow intuitively to gain some identification, gain some realization of what is that something which is beyond the mind. I am deliberately not naming it because so many names have been given, but that is not of any relevance to us. How does it matter? You can give any name to it. But name has no meaning because name and form is something which is related to the mind only. The mind cannot identify anything which doesn't have a name or a form. One of the two or both have to be there for the mind to grasp something. It will not be able to grasp anything which doesn't have a name and or a form. But as I said, once you allow this sense of being something beyond the mind to expand, then there is a shifting of the center. There is a shifting of the center. Yeah, it is. This center is continuously active. It's continuously active. The only thing is, do not allow its activity to dominate oneself. I should not allow that this dynamic aspect of myself to dominate. If you allow it to dominate, that's what it has been doing actually for several decades of our life, right from the beginning. It's been allowed. The I has always been dominating, and therefore it has become the center of the universe. It's the center of everything for itself, and therefore it considers itself to be the master of everything, and therefore it continues to function in a very exploitative manner, a very exclusive manner. And we all are able to see what kind of damage each one of us is capable of doing to this world. Now, once you do not allow this I to be active, you are opening up a vista, you are opening up an avenue for the shifting of the center and coming to the realization that this center is everywhere and not in me alone. This center is everywhere, and therefore there is a very beautiful esoteric saying which says the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere. If in a self-centered manner, if I am acting, I have circumscribed myself and I have created a very limited circumference around me. But the moment this center is shifted, it becomes, you come to know that this center which I have been thinking is the me alone is not necessarily the same thing. Everybody has the same center, and this center is not different. Superficially, it may appear to be different in every individual. So therefore, the center is everywhere and the circumference is nowhere. The circumference is absolutely nowhere. Now, this is what has to happen. This is what has to happen. Now, we are very fond of talking about what is called as a paradigm shift. The meaning of the word paradigm is a pattern or a model, a way of looking at something, a kind of widely accepted example or belief or concept is what we call as a paradigm. Now, this paradigm has to be shifted. There has to be a shift in the paradigm. We are used to this old pattern of thinking, old pattern of feelings, old pattern of the whole thing. Now it has become much more evident with the advent of things like WhatsApp and other social media avenues. We have now come to know that all our minds function in the same manner. We keep on repeating ourselves. We keep on resending messages. And if you are in half a dozen groups, you are sure to receive half a dozen messages of the same message half a dozen times. As somebody said, it is worse than karma. In the case of karma, you only suffer the consequences once. But here, the social media consequences you have to suffer every time, because whenever you open, you see that it is the same message is being reflected in 3 or 4 groups. it also reveals to us that the whole, mind of the humanity is almost functioning on the same level, at the same, in a same pattern. The same model becomes applicable. So our whole thought process is conditioned by that. We never stop and question this model, this paradigm. So there has to be a paradigm shift. Now, according to me, even this paradigm shift is not sufficient. From a spiritual point of view, it is important that the shift should happen from the center which the self has created for itself to something beyond itself. That is one paradigm shift. But more importantly, from a spiritual point of view, it is not simply a paradigm shift, but it is actually a quantum leap. It's a quantum leap. Quantum leap in the sense, it happens in a dimension which is totally different from the dimension which we are used to. The spatio-temporal framework within which we function, from the dimension of time, we go to something which is timeless. In the quantum mechanics, they have found that some things happen at the subatomic level which absolutely take zero time, which from a conventional physics point of view is impossible. However small may be the dimension of time, some dimension of time should be there. Whether it is nanoseconds or picoseconds or whatever it is, it has to be something. But they have actually found that at the subatomic level, weird things happen. The same photon coming out through two different holes and disappearing at one point and appearing at another point in zero time. That's why they have called this as the quantum jump or the quantum leap. Precisely this is what has to happen from a spiritual point of view, whereby from being self-centered, it comes to what we call as a centered self. Now, I just want to take another 5 minutes to conclude with I'm not going to elaborate upon it because that's a different subject altogether. I want to mention something very, very important, which is there in the Aitareya Upanishad. Aitareya Upanishad is an Upanishad of the Rigveda. And from this Upanishad comes the very important or the very first Mahavakya called as Prajnanam Brahma. The Mahavakya, Prajnanam Brahma, comes from the Aitareya Upanishad, which is a part of the Rigveda. But prior to this term Prajnanam, in that Upanishad, he uses, there are 4 terms, 4 aspects of our own being. He calls them as Samjnanam, Ajnanam, Vijnanam, and finally Prajnanam. To put it very briefly, actually what I have talked earlier is related to this and it is derived from this. For example, as I said, Samjnanam means I am, the sense of being, the sense of the fact that I am there. Therefore, Adi Shankaracharya in his commentary calls it as Chetana Bhavaha, the sense of being conscious. Chetana means consciousness. Chetana Bhavaha means the sense of being conscious. Then the second level is what he calls as a Ajnanam. The Upanishad says Ajnanam. Ajnanam means that I am the master, I am the Lord, I am the authority, I am the monarch of all I survey. Is in English, there's a poem which says, I am the monarch of all I survey. This sense, as I said, that I am unique, I am the most important being in this on this earth. And I am actually the center of the solar system. This is what the Upanishad calls it as Ajnanam. Adi Shankara therefore calls this as Ishvara Bhavaha, the sense of being Ishvara. I am the Ishvara, or I am the Lord. Then the third level is Vijnanam. Vijnanam is I experience, I acquire knowledge, I possess knowledge, I express myself, I behave in a manner to impress. All these ideas are incorporated in this Vijnanam. Vijnanam relates to all the kinds of activities, all kinds of activities that go on in this world. He calls that as Kala Parijnanam. In the Indian tradition, we have 64 skills or talents called as the Chatushashti Kala. Chatushashti Kala. These are they have identified, the number is not a very important thing, but they have identified that there are 64 aspects to the Kala, or talents or skills, or innate abilities. So that Parijnanam, the knowledge relating to that, the experiences which we undergo, our ability to communicate, all this relates to Vijnanam. And finally comes this term Prajnanam. This Prajnanam is that which says that I am of the nature of that supreme intelligence. I am of the nature of that supreme intelligence, which is a loose or rough translation of the word Prajnanam. Prajnanam, I am putting it in English as supreme intelligence. What we have spoken earlier about something beyond myself. Something beyond myself. So I am that. That is Prajnanam. And the Upanishad, in its final mantra, gives this Mahavakya called as Prajnanam Brahma. So this has to happen. This is what has to happen for us. From being self-centered, we have to come to the state of centered self. When we are centered in that Prajnanam, your worldview changes. The entire worldview of my being the most important person or my being unique, the entire worldview has changed now. I recognize that I am the world and the world is me, and I am in no way different. I am all inclusive. Earlier, the aspect was exclusive. Now, you find that it is all inclusive. I have given, for the sake of remembering these things, I have given these four aspects as 4 E's. 4 E's. The first one, which he calls as Samjnanam, is elemental and existential. The first set of E. That I am there, I exist. That is the one. Then the second one is that I am the Lord, which obviously means I am excluding myself and making myself different from everybody else. Therefore, there is this exclusivity and also exploitation. When I consider myself as the most important person, I also consider that everybody else is for my service only. Everybody is supposed to serve me or my purpose of fulfilling my desires. So, the second set of E, which relates to Ajnanam, is exclusive and exploitative. The third set, Vijnanam, the third aspect of it, called as Vijnanam, is what I am calling it as experiential and expressive. Experiential and expressive nature. And finally, when we come to this fourth one, Prajnanam, I am calling it as expansive and ecstatic. It is expansive, all-inclusive, and it is a state of bliss. It is ecstatic, and therefore there has to be this instead of, as I said, a paradigm shift, it has to be actually a quantum leap from the first three to the fourth one. The first three are within the purview of our experiences, our knowledge, and what we are. So, samjnanam, ajnanam, and vijnanam, if we take them as one set, within that set, there can be a paradigm shift. But from samjnanam, ajnanam, and vijnanam to prajnanam, there has to be what we call as a quantum leap. Then only we will be moving from self-centered to the centered self. Thank you so much.